This is the Tulsa World podcast. My name is Jason Collington. I'm the editor of the Tulsa World, and I'm here with Tim Stanley and Andrea Eager, two reporters who for a long time have covered a case that's been it's now a long time unsolved. And today we're going to talk about the Welch Girls case. This is a case that started a long time ago. There's been some peaks and some valleys, but several years ago, Tim and Andrea came together with Mike Simons to work on a series to kind of dive deeper into it like we've never done before. But now it's time to talk about it again. Andrea, you're writing a story that's going to be publishing soon about this case. Why are we coming back to it this time?
So the 25th anniversary of the girls' disappearance is December 30th of this month. The Bible family is planning a memorial for that evening in Welch. And so we just decided to check back in with them and with the cold case investigators to see if there had been any new developments in the search for what is believed to be the remains of Laura Bible and Ashley Freeman.
Tim, if you could take a few minutes, tell us how this all started and kind of where it ended up.
Well, the case started December 31st, 1999, with the murder of the double homicide of Danny and Kathy Freeman, and the disappearance from the scene that night of their daughter Ashley Freeman and her best friend Laura Bible, who was having a sleepover. From the beginning, it's lots of twists and turns in this, lots of rabbit holes, but there were some, as we'll probably discuss, some missed opportunities on the front end that very well could have brought this, or at least got a solution to this much earlier in the process. And I know the families certainly have always felt that way as they've conducted, both sides, both the Freeman and Bible families have conducted their own investigations. And in some respects, especially through the early years, seem to do a better job than the actual people who were officially in charge of the investigation. Now that has changed, I think in 2011 with the new cold case team, who eventually cracked it. They have done, I think both families would say, an exceptional job. But yeah, it began 25 years ago, at the end of this month. And so we still, we should say that, investigators still, or they now know who did it. They know how they did it. They know probably why they did it. The question that remains to this day is, where are the girls? Where are the girls' bodies? That is the burning question, and that is the question that keeps the families very much plugged into this case and wanting to get some closure there.
One of the things that I think has stuck with a lot of people is that it's that picture of them. It's that picture of two girls who look like they don't have a care in the world, best friends, and all of a sudden they disappear. You guys have gone to the scenes of these disappearances. You have done the reporting over the years. I also want to thank Sheila Stogsdill for the work that she has also done in this case for us as a freelance reporter for us. This is something that keeps coming up because it's one of those things where, like you said, where are they? And it seemed like people knew and they just didn't ever say anything. Andrea, when you look back at some of not only your reporting, but the reporting on this case, this is a small community of Welch, Oklahoma. People know things. Not a lot is not known in a small community. Why is it, do you think, that there's just been this lack of people coming forward and saying what they know?
So in preparation for this story, I had an hour-long discussion with Laura's mother, Lorraine, yesterday, December 11th. And she said she still holds out hope that someone has the information that they need to find the girl's remains. And she is the reason that we still talk about this case. She's the reason that everyone knows about this case. She is an extraordinary woman. She is obviously was made of strong stuff to begin with. But she told me, that she just made a choice in the early days, with some encouragement from someone who had experienced something similar, the loss of a child in a crime. And they told her on maybe the third or fourth day after the girls were missing, you can't go into your house and shut the door and lay down in the dark. You've got to stand up. You've got to be the voice for these two girls. And here, 25 years later, she is still doing that. She's still doing that work. And she has gone places that I think some of the investigators haven't even gone. She's gone into drug dens. She's gone into, terrifying situations with, people in the drug trade and that whole life in that corner of Oklahoma and in southeast Kansas and into Missouri, looking for the answers that you speak of. And she said most of the tips that they've gotten in the last 5 or 6 years were from children, former children.
Oh, wow.
Who were present when these crimes occurred, and they've now grown up. Many of them are having their own children, and it made them think twice about what even little things that they knew or recalled from when they were kids in environments where drugs were being used and sold and traded. And she said she's so grateful for that, and she truly believes that there are still people out there that might have the key to finding the location of these remains. But she and her husband are both in their mid to late 60s now. They've never had Laura declared dead. The Freeman family chose to do that many years ago. And when she talks about her daughter, she uses the present tense about her age. She said, Laura's 41 now, and I don't know if she's somewhere cold and hungry, needing clothing. And so she continues to fight for those answers and to hold out hope for them.
As I mentioned earlier, Tim, you and Andrea worked with Mike Simons on a series where we kind of did a deep dive. What has stuck with you in this case? You have written about the Girl Scout murders. One of I would say an area expert on that. This is another tough story that you've had to write. What has stuck with you when you and Andrea and Mike got together and did that reporting? What stuck with you through those years since you guys published that?
Well, a couple of things. Certainly, just to piggyback on what Andrea just said, the resilience of the families, in particular, Lorraine Bible. Like Andrea said, this case wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for her and her determination. I think every case almost, it seems like, needs someone like that. So first of all, yeah, that really stands out in my mind. Yeah, a couple other things. I talked already about missed opportunities on the front end and the failures of the original investigators. And I keep coming back to that. There were two things, what I would call two misses up front that just don't, in retrospect, give you or inspire a lot of confidence, I think, at least for me or any other observers, and I think the families as well, on the abilities or the of these investigators to see this through. And I mean, it started, the day after the murders. Initially Danny Freeman's body was found I'm sorry, Kathy Freeman's body was found in the ashes. That their trailer was burned, and the investigators had allegedly gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and could not find any other bodies. And so they initially, their assumption was that Danny Freeman had done this or had been involved in some way and that he had left with the girls. Well, after they turned the scene back over to the families, it was Lorraine Bible. It was the Bibles who were going through the wreckage and found the body of Danny Freeman. That just blows my mind. It
Yeah.
blows my mind that how do you miss that? I mean, I know it was a charred ruin, but it's your job to find everything, as you know, the investigators, and they missed a body, which totally changed, you know, the thinking of what might have happened here. Now, you know, they know that Danny didn't do this and that he's one of the victims. Well, that was wasted time right there. And I know, you know, Lorraine, I think from that point on, had no confidence.
Yeah. How could she? How could
Yeah,
she?
how could you? And unfortunately, they wouldn't do anything to change that. And so there was that miss on the front end. The other one is maybe even more pivotal, and that was again after the scene was supposedly searched and released back to the families. A private investigator working, I think, on behalf of the Freemans found a key piece of evidence on the grounds of the Freeman property there, and it was an insurance verification card. And so, as it turns out, you know, make a long story short, this insurance verification card was actually a direct connection to the man that we now know as, or who investigators have described as the mastermind behind this whole homicide, and that was Warren Philip Welch, now deceased. But yeah, that insurance card connected to Welch's girlfriend's car, who, you know, looking into it, she said that he had been driving her car that night. The guy that we now know who masterminded this whole thing, was on their radar from that point. But it wasn't investigators who found that piece of evidence. It was a private investigator. He, who we interviewed when we did the series, said he tried to get them interested in that piece of evidence, and they did at least, you know, talk to the girlfriend, I think. But outside of that, they basically blew him off and didn't even collect that piece of evidence. He still had it, I believe.
Unreal.
And so that, how do you, again, okay, you missed it at the scene and this other guy has found it, but how do you not take it more seriously than that? I just, you know, that lead, you know, again, we could have a whole different story here to tell, a story that was wrapped up, you know, 25 years ago. You know, and that just is not the way it worked out. So they had Phil Welch on their radar, you know, didn't really follow the lead, and then proceeded from there to go down all of these different side trails and rabbit holes, talk to all of these other possible suspects, most of whom, in fact, all of whom ended up having nothing to do with it. When they had the main guy's name from probably day three or four of the investigation. Those two misses, the body and the insurance card on the front end, just raise all kinds of questions in retrospect, and make us ask, you know, why are we? This didn't have to go this way, and this could have most definitely been wrapped up much earlier, and yet here we are. So,
Andrea, your story that we're publishing on the 25th anniversary, there's another prominent person that will be featured in that story, and he's someone who was alive, someone who did go through the court system. Tell us who that person is, and what's something that's kind of developed recently about him.
So the last remaining suspect who's alive in this case is named Ronnie Busick. He was actually convicted of a crime that he was charged with. That charges were brought by cold case investigators in the last 10 years. He served less than 2 years on that sentence. He's in his late 70s. Mrs. Bible believes he's still in the Chautauqua, Kansas area. It's no surprise to anyone who knows her from the story to know that she keeps very close tabs on every individual in this case. I asked her about the Freeman family. They weren't as forthcoming. They don't put themselves out there the way that she does and has for many, many years. And, she listed them one by one and where they were. Ashley Freeman's grandfather just passed away last week, she told me. But Ronnie Busick is in his late 70s now in Chautauqua, Kansas somewhere. And Mrs. Bible has made it her business to warn much of that small town about this man being in their midst and to be mindful of their wives and daughters. He confessed to cold case investigators that he drove a getaway car. He insists that he did not participate in the homicides of Dana and Kathy Freeman, in the kidnapping of Laura and Ashley, in the torching of the Freeman trailer home. And he swears that he has given investigators all of the information that he knows. And so, he's been out of prison now for some time. And that, is a real sticking point for Mrs. Bible, for the Freeman survivors, that he did very, very little time. And so she was able to get an area lawmaker, Representative Bashore, in Miami, nearby Miami, to sponsor a bill called Laura and Ashley's Law. It's House Bill 1001. And it passed one side of the legislature last year and then ran into a brick wall. And, it's not very often that a lawmaker encounters something like that and decides to push on ahead. But he has already announced that in the upcoming legislative session that begins in February of 2025, that he will be reviving that bill, House Bill 1001. And Mrs. Bible recently retired from her longtime career so that she can, better support that effort to get that bill passed. It would require that anyone convicted of accessory to first or second degree murder serve 85% of their prison sentence before being eligible for consideration of parole. The Bibles were just shocked and horrified, to learn that he learned after the fact that he had been released. They expected him to do, something like 7 years. And, the other men that are believed to have been the more violent individuals in the situation are long since dead. Mr. Welch died in 2008. David Pennington died in 2015, I believe. And so, this getaway driver guy was their last known hope of holding someone accountable for having their daughter taken from them. And this bill would at least have, for some other family, unfortunately, could, keep someone locked away for quite a bit longer than Mr. Busick was.
Well, our hope is to bring this up again 25 years later is to hopefully have someone read it. I mean, as journalists, we hope that not only do we put our content out there, but we hope someone reads it and is triggered to say something, triggered to make a call. These cases are being solved through genealogy nowadays, through ancestry.com. There's all kinds of cold cases that are being solved now. There was a pond up in New England. They found 2 cars and were able to solve 2 cold cases because of the drought out there. These cases are solved, and usually, again, our hope is that we publish this. Not only Andrea's story that kind of gives an update, but we're also going to be republishing on TulsaRoad.com the series that we did. And the idea is read the whole story. And if you know someone who may have known someone, hopefully it's shared, hopefully it's read, and someone comes forward. It would be amazing for our work and our reporting to bring to light something and make one of those, maybe a kid at the time or someone else who saw a car pass by that night, call the line, and we'll obviously have the phone numbers and contact information if you do want to give a tip. So, Andrea, Tim, thank you very much for kind of talking about one of these cold cases that we've written about for a long time. All of this will be on TulsaReal.com, and we'll be publishing the latest update here at the end of December of 2024. Thank you so much.